Here we are.
Hello, Thad. Good afternoon.
Hello, Vicky, and good afternoon, good morning, and all those other pleasantries, wherever we are.
Indeed, indeed. And I'm so glad you said that, Thad, because we have had some feedback that people are watching from as far away and as close as Bermuda, which is on the opposite side of the planet. And it's lovely to know that we can serve and support communities everywhere with this conversation about divorce coaching and some of those sensitive conversations and topics that we don't always talk about at parties.
Really, I always thought people would want to talk about divorce at a party. It's such a
Yeah,
comfortable conversation.
yeah. It's
Yeah,
good that we
not
can have
really.
the conversation here. Yeah,
It is.
because there's no shame around it, and quite often we carry shame around these kinds of things,
We
and
do.
all kinds of other things. But today we're talking about how to talk to the kids when you're considering or experiencing a separation, and how to do that without overwhelming them. Because I
Yeah.
imagine one of the hardest conversations a parent could ever have with their child is to tell them that the family's going to change in a way that's so unfamiliar to them. And you'd want to be honest as a parent, but you'd also not want to give the child too much and overwhelm them. You want to reassure them. Like there's a lot happening there whilst you're also going through your own emotions. So, yeah, let's unpack that conversation and tell us.
Yeah. Sorry, this sounds like someone's running a vacuum cleaner next door. So
Oh, is it?
it's yeah,
Oh,
it's
did you
just
want to knock
it's
on the
quite
wall
loud.
and ask them to?
No, it's not a wall. It's just loud, and it's like, oh, okay,
I love it.
yeah. Anyway,
Wow.
yeah.
We can't hear it
Um,
if that's any solace.
well, that's not solus because it's ringing in here. But anyway, that's okay. It's so to the point that a couple's separating and they want to have that conversation with the kids. It's like, where do you start? The parents are like, I don't want a heartbreak. We don't want to. And there's a few things that you can do. It's like finding a time that's going to be comfortable. It's not like at bedtime. It's going to be a time that maybe, after they've had something to eat, it's supper time. There's a bit of a routine to sit down and do it as a couple. Preferred. May not always be, but the preference would be that the two of you sit down together and say, mom and dad are about to separate, and it's nothing to do with you. We're just going to have some separate living for a while, and we're going to be doing some different things. But let's reassure you, this isn't about you. You haven't done anything wrong, and that we both love you. This is just some key words that can be said, but it's always a hard conversation. It has to be tailored to the needs of the kids and how the parents would talk. But um, it's talking. I think both parents at the same time is going to be probably the most important aspect of the conversation. In that, imagine one parent and then say, "Well, where's mom? Or where's dad?" But if mom and dad are present and they're not sniping at each other, they're not holding hands, but because they are separating, but they're there together to say, you'll be okay. And together, mom and dad are still in your lives and we'll be with you.
Hmm. I think there's a lot that you've covered in
Yeah.
that one conversation that a mum and a dad or a mum and a mum or a dad and a dad
Yeah.
will be having with their kids. And if we can just unpack some of those things, one
Sure.
of the things the key point that I've heard in that is that both parents are present for that conversation. And I imagine that that conversation, you've got two people who are separating for whatever their reasons are. How do you coach them through being together for that conversation and
Hmm.
handling it as it's a factual, it's an emotionally charged factual conversation.
It is. So, the first thing I like to remind any parent is that when talking with your child, your emotions are not sacred cows. They are. The children are the ones that are the focus of this conversation. We're talking about to your kids about something that's going to be a substantive change in their lives. If they're 5 years old or 7 years old, it means a very different thing than it did to, say, a 15-year-old. But, imagine they're young children. They're going to be there trying to figure out, how do I get mom and dad to stay together? How do, what have I done wrong? I'll make my bed. I'll eat my peas. I'm sorry I didn't eat my spinach last night. I'll be better. They'll start to try and bargain. But the parents need to be on the same page. It's not going to help the children going forward. And I'm going to say this again, it's all about the children, right? You as a parent have a responsibility to ensure the well-being of your children. And so part of the conversation is to assure them that they're going to be okay, that they're going to be safe, that they are loved. And if mom and dad are like, or mom and dad are going da, 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 at each other, that's not a fruitful conversation. Put, you know, let's, I'll tell clients that, it may sound a little facetious, but let's just pretend for maybe 20 minutes that you're not at war, that you're not going to battle, and that you are on the same page, and you're going to be the adults here. And you're going to be an adult, and you're going to have an adult conversation with your children, because that's going to be the tempo of how the conversations are going to go for the next period, particularly the next 30 days, until some sort of regularity happens. And there's going to be some consistency, but that takes a while. So the first conversation has to be a conversation of assurance and unity. You may not like, one parent may not like what's happening, and the other parent may say, look, I've made my decision. I'm really happy with it. But that's not the conversation for the children. The topic of conversation is mom and dad, or mom and dad still love you. And that we want to make sure that, you're going to be okay. There's still school tomorrow. There's still things. We're just going to be living separately for a while. So you're going to spend some time with mom and spend some time with dad, but you're going to have a new bedroom, and, but we'll still be here for you.
This is great. This is really great. And I think what I'm picking up here is that there's some planning involved for this conversation, that the parents need to think this through, perhaps work together, not perhaps, work together on what the conversation will be. What are some of their talking points? What do they share and what don't they share? And all of that must be agreed before the family meeting with the kids.
And, talk to a therapist, talk to a counselor, talk to a coach, talk to somebody that can give you some guidelines, and then agree to them. Now, it's going to be really hard because there's going to be a lot of emotion and a lot of anguish and some grief going on. And we've covered this before. Both parents are grieving, by the way. Even the one who made the decision to leave is still going to have some sadness. The one is being left is probably saying, well, my sadness is bigger and greater. But in this moment, you don't overwhelm your children with that. Your children do not need to see the fear, the anger, the anguish. They don't need to be overwhelmed with your emotions, because they're going to have their own emotions. So just said, some of the emotions are, what did I do wrong? What do I need to do to be better? How can I handle this? What can I do to get mom and dad and dad, the parents back together again? And
Yeah.
it's
I think
start
it's
that
very
initial
common.
conversation with the plan. You're right.
It's very common for young children in particular to conspire in their own mind as to how they can fix this problem. What
Because
did
to
I
them,
do
it's a problem.
wrong? How did I make this happen? How do I fix it?
Yeah.
How do I
And
get mom and dad back together again?
that's a very common phenomenon with small children. They're like, I was naughty. I'll be good again. I'll put my toys away. I'll make my bed. Whatever that we were just saying. They will try and begin in the bargaining because they suddenly got, their world just changed. And by the way, it doesn't happen with just small kids. It happens with teenagers too. Their world changed. Behaviorally, things will be very different between young children and older children, but they all go through a similar thing. I've even had it with adults when mom and dad had that what we call the gray divorce. They're in their 60s or 70s, and the kids are in their 30s and or even 40s, and they're going, "Mom and dad are divorcing." Because mom and dad have been that institution. So if you're 3 or 33, mom and dad are the institution. They're the rock in which you build your dreams and aspirations. And now they're changing. So having the conversation with the kids has to be planned, and it has to be sustained, and it has to be loving. And you may not feel like it, but
But it's
it's
all
gonna.
about the kids.
There you go.
I got it. And what's interesting about it being all about the kids is that's not just your opinion, that's the law.
The law says is the well-being of the children come first. So, nowhere in the Family Law Act does it say, okay, mom and dad, your feelings are sacred cows, so you have to take care of your needs first. It's like, no, your responsibility is to make sure that your kids are taken care of. And that includes their mental well-being, not just
Yeah.
their physical well-being.
Can we talk about that a bit? Kids
Hmm.
show stress in different
Yeah.
ways.
Oh,
Some
yeah.
will withdraw, some will be angry, some will act out, some will skip school. So, how does a parent know what's normal reaction after this conversation? And what might be a sign that really their child could do with a little more support? How would a
Well,
parent gauge this?
okay. I don't know what normal will be in the circumstances, but imagine you have a child that is outgoing, social, really sort of happy, looks forward to going to school, meticulous in their dress, you know, likes to make sure their shoes are polished and their uniforms are neat and tidy. And that changes. They suddenly become a little more withdrawn or become completely withdrawn. They become sullen. They don't want to, they're not that concerned about the dress anymore. This can happen. This can happen with any gender at any age. Just a little signs. If you have a child that is normally quiet, suddenly becomes exceedingly talkative and just wants to try and talk all the time and talks about all random things and just starts talking. These are behaviors of them trying to adjust to the new circumstances. I won't call them norm because it's not normal. This has gone from mom and dad are together. I come home from school. They're home. We have dinner together. Yeah, they fight, but that's okay. I still go to my sport practice. I still, I go to the footy. We hang out together. We do things. That's all now changing. What does that mean? And how do I process it? Where do I go? Where do I put my feelings? Who do I talk to about it? If I talk to my friends are also going through this, may have some ideas about handling it. But if you can imagine peer advice, it's the same for adults as it is for children. It's never going to be the best advice.
Hmm.
So it's for the parent is to just to observe any changes.
And I
If you had a
imagine there'd
child that has
be
a
short
ferocious
term.
appetite that stops eating, or a child that suddenly starts eating more, it could be I'm avoiding my feelings, I'm stuffing my feelings.
Hmm. And Thad, I imagine that there'd be some short term actions that seem out of the norm,
Yeah.
yet it's a reaction in the moment and perhaps isn't a forever thing. It's not going to be a long term behavioral change. So I guess we don't want to helicopter parent and, notice a slight change in our child and then be on it as like what's wrong and how can we help, because
Oh,
that unnormalizes or denormalizes feelings. I mean, we're allowed to have feelings at any
well,
age.
have a teenage boy or girl and they suddenly start becoming sullen and moody. It may have nothing to do with you. That's just teenage kids going through hormones,
Right.
right? So, yeah, what
Let's
looks
not
like a flag,
internalize this all being about the divorce, is what I'm hearing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And so
but
perhaps it's about looking over time or looking at patterns, or what about just checking in? I mean, wouldn't it be nice if parents check in with their kids on how they're coping, how they're managing through the whole process?
yeah, and you can ask a kid, How you doing with, you said, you don't ask them about how they're doing over the other of the parent's house. Yes, how you doing? Is there anything going on? Do you want to have a chat? And oh, here's the thing, and this is so old school. We sit at the kitchen table and have meals. It's the weirdest thing, but it is it is the process, and this is the human experience. And I have found this in industrial relations, and I have found this in family relations. If we sit down to the table and break bread together, we have conversations. No phones, no earpods, nothing. We just sit there, and it's like, how was your day? Fine. You have any extra homework that's going on? No. Yeah. Don't know. I mean, kids speak in monosyllables a lot of the time, but they're speaking. It's helping clear away the dishes after the meal. You know, it's little those are little things, but that helps them normalize the behavior at home.
Mm,
Because keep in mind that they may now have two homes. One's parent A and parent B home, but they have two
mm,
homes. And those two homes are going to have different rules and different procedures. And but overwhelming your kid with, well, this is what we're going to be doing and this is what it's going to look like. Kids don't future think. They already got enough anxiety going on in their world. You don't need to do that for them. So, my favorite thing is family meals, dinner time. You do it together. Breakfast is at the table together, right?
routine
Nutrition's
as well.
right.
I'm hearing that
Making
these
sure
are all
that
parts of a routine so that there's certainty built into the day.
right. Even if they say they hate it, they'll look forward to having dinner, even if it's takeaway pizza. It doesn't matter. It's sitting down together just to have, and you can say, you know what, I had a really good day today, and I managed to did it, and I got this done. And the kids might go, okay. Depending on their age, they may be excited and they may want to start telling you stories of what they've done, but give it time. That's in the first 30 days we want to do that. But we're talking about how not to overwhelm your kid. We don't talk finances. We don't badmouth the other parent. We don't use our children as weaponized targets, or do we use them as weaponized missiles? Right?
What do you
We
mean
don't
by that?
say, okay, what I mean by that is, well, so I'll be a male gender. How's your mom doing? And you know what? This is all your mom's fault anyway. If she hadn't, and you start disclosing the details of why you're separated, it's not their business. You start talking about money problems and how, your father just won't pay for these things. That's not their business.
Good
You do not
examples.
want it because, the kids will then go, well, mommy says or daddy says, and now you've got a war going on, and guess who's in the middle of it?
Hmm. Trying to
And
solve the problems, I no doubt.
trying to solve the problem and trying to be the messenger to make peace between the parents. They want to
Mm,
become a mediator, but they do not have the emotional equipment to deal with it, even when they're in their 30s, because this is
mm,
mom and dad. It's just too close to home. So imagine a 3-year-old trying to do that or a 33-year-old. It's still too close to home.
mm. Yeah, so that really does speak to the co-parenting communication. So you've shared some of the things not to do. What
Yeah.
what's what does healthy co-parenting communication look like? Maybe give us an example for a young
Yeah.
person,
Have a
maybe
family.
five
Have a family
to
plan.
12 or something.
Yeah. So we call it a parenting plan, but just have a plan. So for
Mhm.
instance, the kids are over one home 3 days of the week, and they're over the three, and then they alternate weekends, whatever they're doing. Um, it's who's dropping off, who's picking up from school, and it's the same every week or every 2 weeks, whatever's going to be the cycle. It's the same. Consistency with the parents is the key. The second thing is to never debate your finances in front of your children and have an agreement as to how school uniforms are paid for, how if your school fees or they're going to kindy, how that's all being handled, rather than trying to have that negotiation at a pickup. So you one parent is, and this is one of the things they do here, they drop off at Macca's, the other parent's picking up at Macca's, and then you have a full-blown discussion over who's doing what and what. Not an appropriate time. Use your time specifically for what that time is, and then agree with the co-parent to put time aside to discuss those things in a more quiet environment. And it may be by an app, it may be by telephone, it might be even an email. But have the conversation aside at a time when you're not being rushed or feeling harassed or hurried through something, because it'll never
Mm.
be a good outcome.
Thank you for that. You mentioned an app, and you mentioned that once before in our
Mm,
conversations. I find it fascinating, and I think it must be a wonderful resource for people in this situation that there is technology, an app, and possibly several different versions that support the type of specific communication that you need as co-parents.
it does. There are it tracks communications, it puts in times for pickup. You can set up the app can be set up to do so many different things, like so you can plan the month ahead. You can set in the schedule of who's got what time when, and how the holidays are being managed. What's that can all be put into a calendar. You can use the app for communication. So then you can say, you drop a quick line. It's like using a WhatsApp or a messenger. There's You can call through the app. There's um, lots of different tools, and I mean some are quite expensive and some are free, and the free ones don't have a lot of the tools to it. But these are, if you like, a consolidated platform to have the communications, rather than I got to find the email that you sent me, or you sent me a message, but was it on Messenger? Was it on app? Was it in
Yeah, tell
LinkedIn?
me about it.
Was it in TikTok? Was it in Instagram? I've got one platform avoids having all the social media communications that we have.
Talking about overwhelming the children, let's not overwhelm the parents first, right?
That's a great point, because the parents are already overwhelmed. There's a separation going on. They're trying to navigate a conversation with the kids, and they have multiple emails to farm through to find a message. Well, I
Mm,
sent you the note 2 weeks ago. Well, where did you send it? But it was in the app. It's there.
mm. Very interesting. Just to wrap this up, when a child of any age, so you've shared that a parent mustn't ask the child about the other parent and what
Hmm.
their activities or behaviors or feelings are, because that would be involving the child in the middle. What is your advice to support a parent whose child is asking, they're flipping it? So they're asking about, well, how are you doing? When are we guys getting together? Or, like the conversation
Hmm.
can go that other way too. What are your thoughts on how to help a child who is naturally curious about next steps and the other parent?
Excuse me. The question can be, so, I'm not, I actually haven't heard of a child asking the parent about how the other parent is doing or something like that. It would be when I was at mom's house or dad's house, or when I'm at the other parent's house, this happens. And the answer is, what happens at their house is what happens at their house. What happens at this house happens at our house. And each of us have our own ways of doing things. And the child, and I'm just thinking, I know one parenting that that dad is very much, this is a mom and dad. Mom is very much a stickler on things are tidy, things are put away. Dad is very much laissez-faire, co-founder of, he's just like, let us play, he's a Disneyland dad. He just wants to, everything's great. Don't worry about it. We'll get it cleaned up later. Where mom's like, no, we clean it now. We put our toys away. We make our beds. We do that. And the kids are like, well, dad doesn't make us do that. And I was coaching her and she says, well, how do we do that? How do I answer that? And you say, well, those are daddy's rules. At this house, we have our rules, and this is how we do that. So this is why when, we do mealtime and we do this, this is how we do this. What you do at your father's house is your business. And that's what you do with him. And that's your time. And she went, I can say that? And I said, yeah, because it's not your business. If the kids are happy and they're healthy and their well-being is being well managed, it's not your business. Your business is what happens in your house.
Yeah, I believe this has led us to the conversation about boundaries and control. And, it's very easy to think, well, this is how I do it in my house, and that's how I need them to do it in their house.
I have had that conversation with parents, and they say they need to be in bed by 7 p.m. And I said, and if they're not in bed by 7 p.m., what happens? Well, they're really cranky the next day, and then I pick them up and they're just really tired. I said, and so you know that, but you're not going to be able to change that. You could say, could you please make sure they're in bed by 7? The other parent can ignore you. What are you going to do about it? Divorce them all over again? So, it's it's a tough thing because, some parents really like to have good rules in place because it gives the kids consistency. Other parents are like, nope, I don't want any rules. I want them to be free to express themselves, to have whatever they want. Most parents are between the two, but you do get those extremes.
Look, I find it so interesting because when parents are still together, these
Hmm.
issues still come up, right?
They do.
One parent will want something for their child, and the other parent doesn't see it as important. Like they're not going to push against it, but they're not going to go out of their way to enforce that rule that
Yeah.
parent A has put in. So it's really no different, only parent A has less control over it when there's the second house, when they're
Well, they don't
separated.
have, they're entitled to have an opinion. They just don't have the right to impose it on the other parent anymore. I mean, even though there's a parent, you can write it into a parenting plan and say they'll be in bed by 7 o'clock. What happens if the kids are watching their favorite TV show and it's a Friday night? Oh, and they're going to get up a little later on Saturday or Sunday or weekend. It If it's a school night, you want to be responsible, but
Would you write that
enforcement,
into a parenting plan?
you
Something
could,
that specific?
but good luck trying to get that into a court order.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could write
It
that.
seems
See, we can write into a parenting plan anything that we agree to, right? As parents, we can write anything in. It's going to be, is that in the well-being? How are you going to manage that? I mean, as a mediator, I'll ask the question, how's that going to be managed? Is it going to be, it's a general guideline that you'd like to have the children in bed by 7 p.m. at night, right? It's a suggestion. And it's a good guide to have. But if they don't make it and they're cranky the next day, and it's who's the parent that's paying for it when they have to take them to school?
yeah.
Okay. So the consequences aren't everyone's to bear. It's usually the parent who's not saying, well, it's okay, they can stay up till 9, 10 o'clock at night. Well, the next morning you're trying to get them out of bed at 6 o'clock to get ready for school. And what's happening? Because you've got to drive them and
I think,
yeah.
look, not having been in that situation, it would be probably unfair of me to say, but from where I sit on the outside, it sounds like this is one of those things that comes with separation and divorce. You will inevitably have less control over how your children are parented. You have 50% of the control of how they're parented or influence,
Oh,
let's use that word.
influence. And if you have a good relationship with your co-parent, you can agree to things because the consequences of not have other things. So if the one parent lets them stay up late every night, the other parent's going to say this isn't manageable, but at some point both parents start to feel the pain. Can we manage this better?
Yeah.
It becomes a talking point to pivot on to do it better, because the kids are, kids are born with a negotiation tool to know how to manipulate their children. That they can
The
manipulate the
parents.
parents. It's
It's
just an
true.
automatic thing. They know where to move their parents, how to move them. Parents are chess pieces that their children have an innate ability to move,
It's
right?
wonderful. That's them
Parents think
growing
they're in
and
charge.
discovering their
Yeah,
identity.
yeah.
Yeah.
Parents think they're in charge. No, you have a guardianship. You're a steward of raising the children. You give them the best that you can. You give them guidelines, and hopefully they grow into good adults and have good behaviors and make good choices. You do your best you can, and you're not going to get it right, and you're going to make mistakes. That's okay. That's what human beings do. We learn from our mistakes and we move on, and we learn not to repeat. If we keep repeating the same thing over and over again, we haven't learned the lesson. So, parenting is not a textbook. It is, you can read all the guidelines you want, but parenting is tough. And
And
when
what
you're
I'm
doing it
getting,
as co-parents, it becomes harder. I'm sorry, Vicky, you were about to say, what are you getting?
I'm just getting from this in a way that we can wrap up the session,
Okay.
the conversation for now, is that, as you said, parenting is a bit of an experiment. Every day you're trying something, it works for as long as it works, and then you shift and change. I think that's how we do life, right? It's like we've
Hmm.
got to be behaviorally flexible. We've got to be willing to try different things. And a big part of what I've gotten from today's conversation is that communication is the key when it comes to helping children through your decision to separate. And
Yeah.
that's in the announcing it, in sharing with them what the decision is, what that might look like for them, how they can communicate through it, and then also checking in with them to just make sure that they're coping, and then communicating with the co-parent. So all of what we've really shared today is got that common thread of communicating with the children well-being in mind first. How did I do
Absolutely.
wrapping that up?
You did excellently. I thought we had another 40 minutes, but that's okay.
I know it's a great conversation. Was there anything you wanted to add?
I'm going to stop it there, and we'll wrap this up.
Amazing. For those of you who are watching either live or on replay, feel free to reach out to Thad. He does offer an initial consultation, complimentary. If you have something on your mind or on your heart that you think he might be able to help you with, get in touch with him, admin@betteroutcomes.au, or hit him up on LinkedIn. If you're a family lawyer and you have clients who you feel could benefit from these kinds of conversations, same. Thad's always open for a conversation. And we'll see you here next Wednesday, same time, same place, on Thad's LinkedIn Live, to talk about another related topic to do with separation and divorce. All the best. Stay well.